Welcome to a very special edition of Potpourri. I'm Jonah Baker.
And I'm Rebecca Dumas, and today we have Marvin Arrington, Sr.
Thank you so much for joining us, Judge.
Thank you very much for extending me an invitation.
Now, before we get started, you graduated from Clark Atlanta in 1963, and shortly thereafter, 6 years, you were elected and served on the Atlanta City Council. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell us about that. Like, how was that experience for you, just 6 years after you
I
graduated?
always smile about that. Since 1963, I graduated first semester of 64.
Okay.
In 1963, we probably had one of the best football teams in the history of this school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little embarrassed to tell her, I purposely dropped a course to come back to play with the 64 team.
Mm.
And it was a very great experience for me. 9 of us got BA degrees in 64, and they have gone on to be accomplished. Mm-hmm. 4 or 5 of them got PhDs, and it was just a great place to be. And plus, I had fallen in love for about 20 minutes, and that didn't work out, so I went off to Howard University, you know. But it was first semester 64.
Wow.
But it was a very special place for me.
Wow.
And I thoroughly enjoyed my experiences here at this university.
Well, I want to ask, does it still seem like it was just yesterday?
It does, in fact, because I never separated myself, or I didn't walk away. Mm-hmm. You know, you graduate and you go do some other things. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to be near Clark. I wanted to be a part of its growth. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure, and I got a little upset because I wanted my 2 children to go to Clark Atlanta University, but they went to, Marvin went to UVA, and Michelle went to Howard. But it was a very special place. I was an inner city kid, rough around the edges, and never thought I'd get an opportunity to go to college. But my high school coach was Raymond Williams, who had been a graduate of Clark Atlanta University, coach by the name of Judy Brown from Gary, Indiana, mm-hmm. who was the track coach, and a guy by the name of George Gray. He had coached me in the 8th grade, and he coached me in the B team. Mm-hmm. And so when they said they thought I could, get a scholarship to Clark and that I would benefit from it, and I did benefit from it, I would do it all over again.
Wow. And speaking of, how did Clark Atlanta prepare you for your journey into the judicial system?
Well, I think they did a great job. We had student athletes mm-hmm. that were exceptional. Had a fellow by the name of Dr. Johnny Scott. Johnny went on to get the medical degree and the PhD, and he is now on the rules committee for the NCAA, but mm-hmm. he was from a little place called Bessemer, Alabama. And to look at his credentials is absolutely mind-boggling. But I just had guys who, we studied all the time. And I say this not in jest. I started dating a young lady my freshman year, was named Dolores Aldrich, and she was the first one out of my class to go forward and get the PhD. She went to Purdue. Mm-hmm. And she made me stay focused, go into the library, studying, and would never let me use the word that I can't make it or give up. She was an encouragement. She went on to become Val of our class. Wow. And subsequently, when I became the dean for black students at Emory University, mm-hmm. I hired her to help create the Black Studies program at Emory. Mm-hmm. That was back in the day, man. If any demand you made, they complied with it. They were trying to keep us happy.
Right.
So it was a great place for me, and I would do it again. And I've been enriched by my experience here at Clark Atlanta University.
Wow, well, that's just gave me a brief history lesson right there.
Right. So how do you feel the connection is between Clark Atlanta University alumni and students today?
I don't think there's a connection, and which is very unfortunate. I always tell people when people said, ask not what Clark can do for you, but what can you do to make Clark a better place to be? People know we have limited resources. That's why I have raised, and I'm not bragging, and have helped contribute almost $2.3 million
Wow.
And one of the experiences that it may have been Frederick Douglass who said around 1863, power concedes nothing but out of demand. It never has and never will. I was the vice chairperson of the Olympics Committee. And whatever they decided for the other community, I've always raised the issue. Never forget when we pushed through this stadium that we now have. I was in a meeting, I said, now what are we going to do about Clark? And they approved it.
Right.
I now think it was a mistake because we approved a stadium for Morris Brown that's sitting over there now and been empty for 15 years. And I said to him in that meeting, why don't we build one first-class facility? And Clark and Morris Brown can play their games they said, well, don't we need us? No, man. I said, I come from a segregated environment here. And 12 football teams played at Herndon Stadium back in the old days. They just scheduled some on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Then you played another game at 5 o'clock. Played some games on Friday and what have you. And it's a real loss to see that facility at Morris Brown just sit there vacant. No activities going on. That's because we're not creative and to pull all that together and make sure it goes forward. But it's, it was a great experience for me. If I had to do it all over again, yeah, I would do it. I would sign up tomorrow, you know.
Wow.
So what do you think that students from the public relations management major, you think that we can do to help bridge that gap between
No, you tell me what you all can do. Don't let me answer the difference. You be creative, you do it, and what have you. I think you have to have courage. I came home from Howard University my freshman year from law school, and I went out to Emory to do some reading over the weekend, over the summer. We had this reading list, and I was standing in the hallway, and this distinguished white gentleman who had a pipe in his mouth walked up to me and asked me, so who are you? I said, I'm Marvin Arrington from Clark Atlanta University, Clark College at the time. And I was just reading, and he said to me, do you think you'd be interested in coming to Emory Law School? I said, if I could find some money, because Emory was very expensive. Back in those days, and don't laugh about this, tuition at Emory was $12,000, man. That was like $1 million today. But what was good about it, I went to Howard University, and the tuition was $300 a year.
Wow.
But that's, you know, and so I told him I would come if they could find me some money. And then he said, well, I think we can find you some money. I said, I'm going to need some more money now. So I got to get my friend Clarence Cooper to come with me. I said, I'm not about to come out here and face all the issues I got to face. I don't have somebody I can rely on and go to lunch with every day. That was the beginning of my affiliation with Emory University Law School. It turned out to be a great experience.
Wow. So now, speaking of former students, what can the alumni do to bring in that motivation back here to the students at Clark Atlanta?
We need to have a task force to find out what we can do. It is bigger than Marvin Arrington, you know, but what about the people who graduate from here? They are now outstanding medical doctors. We had a fellow by the name of Bill Gordon. That was one of the brightest persons I've ever seen in my life. And Bill went on at A.D. Anderson Cancer Institute out in Houston. And unfortunately, 3 or 4 years ago, he had the PhD and the MD. He was out jogging and dropped dead about 4 or 5 years ago. But then you got Joe Robinson. Joe Robinson had the PhD and the MD. You got Huey Matthews, who's now the dean of the pharmacy school at Mercer University, and been the dean for 25 years. I have not seen one article on Huey Matthews. And we don't sell our products. We got some very bright people. A young lady by the name of Pat Gam from Chattanooga. She was bright. And I just wonder where are those students now? I know they're out there somewhere, but they don't know about our product. They don't know about the George Edgecombe, the Clarence Cooper, the Bill Gordon, the Joe Robinson, Sam Hagan, But we have a story to tell. And when you tell that story, people will see the goodness of this institution, and we will go forward. But I would never give up on Clark Atlanta University. I wouldn't be anywhere today but for the great experiences at this particular school. And then somebody else who really, really touched me was a football coach by the name of L.S. Epps. He was from East St. Louis, Illinois. He was an alternate. And the sister from Xavier down in New Orleans went to East St. Louis to get him. And because of his background and circumstances, he committed himself to his boys. I mean, coach would be coaching, and if you were talking and split a verb, he would stop practice then and there. And he said, Marvin, you can't say that. You know, and he wouldn't embarrass you. He would just let you know there was improper grammar and English and what have you.
Right.
And so Clark was just a great, great, great place for me to get an education. Some kind of way we, not me, got to formulate a plan. We got to utilize the radio station, we got to utilize the TV station, and we got to let our graduates say, hey, now I've passed on to your instructor a brochure I got from a college where they highlighted on a calendar graduates for 12 months, and on each page they had 3 or 4 graduates. Well, 4 times 12, that's 48 people. We can tell it in one publication.
Right, absolutely.
What we are doing. There was a young lady in Indianapolis. Her name was Jacqueline Starks. Jacqueline was a math teacher. And years ago, when I attended an NCAA basketball final, I was reading the newspaper, and she had been elected Educator of the Year. Don't you know we ought to tell that story, man? She's married to a country boy from Lynette, Alabama, named Leroy Greenwood. And they've educated 2 or 3 of their children. But that is a great story for us to tell.
Right.
And we got to capture those moments. I've been trying to find a young lady by the name of, she was from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Johnny Downs. She was very popular. She was an AKA. She was the first Clark graduate that I know of to go to a Hastings Law School out in San Francisco. Don't know where she is. We haven't been able to find her. But we need to tell those stories.
Judge, hold that thought. I want to hear more from you, okay?
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Matchsticks, matchbox, matching tie to matching socks. You don't know why, but you're really special to match point, match game. You and I are not the same, but I can tell that you're really special to me. There's something I can give to make you laugh, to help you live. We're the perfect match, and you're really special to me. We're the perfect match, and you're really special to me. Matchsticks, matchbox, matching tie to matching socks. You don't know why, but you're really special to match point, match game. You and I are not the same, but I can tell that you're really special to me. There's something I can give to make you laugh, to help you live. We're the perfect match, and you're really special to me. We're the perfect match, and you're really special to me.
It's time to join forces. Get energized. And fuel up right.
It's coming.
Because starting today, every kid in America has a mission. Bring out the action hero in you. Be part of the greatest action movie ever. The first movie that puts you in the action. Show us how you train and eat like an action hero. Join in at actionheroalliance.com.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities, our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Mom, can we get some ice cream? Please, Mom, please.
No, we're having dinner soon.
Please.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
Welcome back. We're here with Judge Marvin Arrington Sr., and we want to just pick up, going back earlier, Judge. Give us a brief summary from graduating to practicing law to the bench.
It was an interesting journey. When I returned to, when I got out of law school in 1967, and when I got elected, when I went to Atlanta City Hall, they had separate water fountains, separate bathrooms, and the whole 9 yards. And one of the things I did the very first day when we got sworn in, everybody was happy. And I told them I wasn't happy. I said, I've walked into a building where they got white water fountains and black water fountains, black, you know. And I said, as soon as this session's over, I'm gonna go use the white bathroom. And we're gonna get it started in terms of what have you. And so it was difficult, you know, and everybody said, well, you're a troublemaker. I don't know what that means. You know, Vernon Johns, the great minister who was Martin Luther King Jr. predecessor over in Montgomery, had a favorite quote: if you see a good fight, get in it. You know, if you see wrong and don't do anything about it, what is that all about? You know, if you got the power, you know, and flex your muscle for the good, not for corruption. Like a bunch of these black elected officials going to jail, and they need to be in jail because they have betrayed the trust that your parents and grandparents and others in these little small communities have entrusted in us. So I just looked at it as being a challenge and what have you. I never forget, I couldn't believe that nobody would let Muhammad Ali fight because they said he was a draft dodger and what have you. I said, give me that legislation. And I stood up and I introduced to put him back in the ring. And it passed by one vote. But you got to have courage to do what is right. Make sure that you're an integral part of the process and that it's working for everybody. My son went to the University of Virginia, and I applaud him. I wanted him to go to Clark. But when we got out of high school, man, you better not think about applying to the University of Virginia or any other school. But my two classmates, Dr. Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter, they applied to the University of Georgia, and they ride for almost 2 months over there, man. Burning cars, throwing brooks.
Wow.
You know, but you got to stand up. You know, and where I got my courage from in the civil rights movement, there was a guy by the name of Lonnie King, who was a distinguished Morehouse graduate. He has been forgotten. And you all ought to do a documentary on him, okay? Because the late Dr. Benjamin Mays called us to his office and said, if you all march today downtown on Richardson, somebody's gonna get killed. And he had the other college presidents in there. Dr. Brawley, Dr. Manley over at Spelman, Frank Cunningham over at March Brown. And they said, please don't march, so y'all gonna go in and get killed. And Lonnie King stood up and said, Dr. King, Dr. Mays, said, you said something to me my freshman year to the entering class. See, if you believe in something, you need to be willing to die for it. He said, I'm ready to die today. He said, I want my rights, and you all are gonna give me my rights today. And that was the turning point, I think, in 60, 61 that made us get involved in the civil rights movement. Stand up and be counted. Stand up and do something that is constructive. You know, a couple of times people say, well, you know, you're going to, you know, get kicked off the bench. I said, so let it be. That's not the greatest thing in the world. I have served. You know, so I'm not concerned about that, you know. I'm not a fool. I had my retirements in, so let them go ahead and do what they need to do.
Right.
You know, I had retirement in from the city, from the county, from the state, you know. And I tell young people all the time when you get started, you get your, you know, 401k programs and IRA program, because if you don't save anything on the front end, you're not going to have anything on the back end.
Right. Judge, what advice would you give young men nowadays that you see sagging their pants and just on the wrong track? What advice would you give them?
To think about the sacrifices that have been made, where we're trying to go. I was criticized nationally and internationally. And because they said I kicked all the white folks out the courtroom. That wasn't the message. The message was when the white folks left the courtroom, I said to the young Afro-Americans, what are y'all doing? I said, you're killing, you're using drugs, you have no goals, no objectives. And next day in the New York Times, black judge kicked all white folks out the courtroom.
Wow.
And wanted me to respond to it. I said, I'm not going to respond to that nonsense. I'm not going to let you take my action. I know their intent. And make something bad out of it. What was interesting was a black female who dropped a dime. She had gone to Savannah State, and she was going to make her career off of me and take it out of context. You know, but you know, I wish her well. But they wanted me to apologize. I wasn't about to apologize. Apologize for what? I said, man, they can have this job. You know, for telling young Afro-Americans, stay in school, do your homework, make something out of yourself. Can't handle this teenage pregnancies. Young people come to my courtroom, 25, 26, with 5 babies. That is create a cycle of poverty, because they would never get a chance to go to CAU anywhere else. But every time there was a young female that would come to my courtroom and say they wanted to get an education, they had a child, I said, okay, I will buy you books for you. Just stay in school and get it right, okay? And I'll just say, you know, make something out of yourself. Be proud. Help your sisters and your brothers inside that household. Learn how to write, how to articulate, and to be a part of something. We don't have a plan, I'm talking about young people today, in terms of how we get from Alpha to Omega. You work hard, you study, and you say, I'm going to make something out of myself. You know, and I said to my 2 children when they was in high school, if I get a call from a school teacher, I got to get off my job and come out to Douglas High School, somebody's going to have hell to pay. You know, because I'm busy trying to make money so you can go to college. So we have to keep preaching it over and over and over and over. And that's why I'm so disappointed to see all these young black elected officials getting indicted. The young man in Charlotte that got indicted the other day, you know, for $38,000.
Yeah.
And his life is ruined forever. You know his parents are disappointed. Jesse Jackson Jr., you know parents are disappointed. The young man in Detroit, Kume was Kirkpatrick, a graduate of FAMU, Michigan State Law School, and he just got, what, 28 years? And he's like 30 years of age.
Yeah.
When he get out of jail, man, his life is all over with. Like a bad seed, you know. Everybody said, hey, he should have listened to his parents. He should not have listened to his daddy, because his daddy got to go to jail too. As soon as he get out, they put his dad in jail. Mother was a congresswoman from Detroit, lost her seat behind that nonsense, you know. and Jesse Jackson Jr. bought a $28,000 watch. I could have given him a watch. I got a Mickey Mouse here. I'm serious.
He does, very nice.
Here, you know? I paid $168 for it. I would have got them 4 or 5 Mickey Mouse watches, you know.
So what advice would you give a student that is wanting to go in the judge career? And
practice law, practice hard, be honest, make something out of yourself, and set goals, and don't be afraid to challenge the system, whatever. But work hard. Set some goals and objectives. On December the 20th, when I was practicing, I would set goals and objectives for the following year. And I would update it, you know, every 12 months. But set some goals, be a leader, you know, and just hang in there. And that's what I would do. Both of mine are lawyers. I said mine, I'm talking about my daughter and my son. And one now is running for office. I said, don't run to be popular. Run, get elected to do something for somebody. Yeah, so that's what I would do.
And we just have a few more minutes left, but I know on April 30th we have Law Day coming up here at CAU. How will that bridge the gap with former alumni and the current students here at Clark Atlanta?
Let them know we're thinking about them. They need to go ahead and get their degrees and make a contribution. One of the greatest highlights of my career in the last 3 or 4 weeks, a young lady I recruited to my law firm because before I started hiring Afro-American, there was no major law firm in Atlanta that would hire an Afro-American. And next month, Patrice Perkins Hooker is going to be sworn in as the president of the Georgia State Bar.
wow.
Now you're talking about, and I never forget, and I thought, we'll make it. I said, but we cannot give up. And now to stand there, and she got Vernon Jordan who's going to come and give a speech on her behalf. But when I read that in the magazine, tears just literally ran down my eyes. And in that article, she said, I wouldn't be here today but for Marvin Arrington. And so hopefully we can have her here. But Law Day is a time to come and make a difference, do an assessment of where we're from. Over in South Carolina, they went back to interview all the Afro-Americans who had made a difference. And most of them had broken spirit. They were bankrupt because once they participated in the movement, people were not extending them credit. They lost their jobs, didn't have no bank account. And they turned to this old black man who had been one of the movers. And they said, was it worth it? He said, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it again.
Absolutely. Judge, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for tuning in to Potpourri. I'm Jonah Baker.
And I'm Rebecca Dumas.
Have a wonderful day.